All right, you probably know by now that Beaverton is one of the most desirable suburbs in all of the Portland metro area. And Beaverton is huge. It's almost 20 square miles, and there are a ton of different types of neighborhoods, styles of homes, age of homes, different areas that you could live. We've looked at South Beaverton, and in this video, we're looking at the central part of Beaverton, which is downtown Beaverton and some of the surrounding communities. So you have Central Beaverton, Vose, you have West Beaverton, Cedar Hills, Denny. These are all areas that have a lot of variety in, again, just the type of neighborhoods that you can get, the type of homes, and just the style of living overall. So all that starts now. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Beaverton, Oregon today. And if this is your first time to the channel living in Oregon, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. People reach out to us all the time who are thinking about moving to the Portland metro area, relocating to the area. Beaverton is definitely top on a lot of people's lists. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link below in the description of this video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to Portland. All right, welcome to the computer view. In this video, we're looking at some of the more centrally located neighborhoods in Beaverton, Oregon. So Beaverton, Oregon is enormous. I think as we've probably hammered home up to this point, Beaverton is 20 square miles. There are a ton of very distinct neighborhoods. There's a lot of people who live here. There's older neighborhoods, newer neighborhoods, young families, younger areas with a lot of apartments, old established neighborhoods, everything in between. So you see downtown Portland right here. And if you look at the metro area on a map, you're going to see Beaverton taking up an enormous chunk of this west side. And when we say west side, meaning west of the Willamette River here. Beaverton is in Washington County. So Portland here is Multnomah County. Multnomah County stretches out east quite a ways. And then down here, south and southeast, this is all Clackamas County. So this is the Tri-County area, and the Portland metro area is made up of these three counties primarily. And in this video, we're looking at kind of this corridor here running right through the middle. We're going to look at this West Beaverton area. We're going to look at Cedar Hills. We're going to look at West Slope, and we're going to look at this Vose neighborhood. So these are some of the more centrally located areas in Beaverton. Down south, you have areas like Greenway, Highland, you have South Beaverton, you have neighbors Southwest, Murray Hill area, Sexton Mountain, beautiful areas. Up north, you get into this Five Oaks neighborhood, which kind of extends south into some of the areas that we'll be looking at in this video. But primarily north of Highway 26 here, you get into Cedar Mill. Bethany is up here, very desirable area. Oak Hills is a neighborhood that is very desirable. These are all unincorporated Washington County. A lot of these areas have Portland addresses, but they're in the Beaverton School District. So you can see some of these pockets that aren't outlined as Beaverton. Again, these are all Beaverton School District here. So, you could be driving along, say Walker Road here. You're not going to know that you're kind of coming in and out of Beaverton, as you're driving along here. And actually, this whole section right here is the Nike campus, which is enormous. So that's unincorporated. This Cedar Hills area is a neighborhood we're going to look at, and then this kind of downtown central Beaverton area as well. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with looking at West Beaverton. So again, we're looking at kind of this central corridor here, which is along Highway 10 and Highway 8. So 10, once you get out into Beaverton, is going to be Farmington Road, and then Tualatin Valley Highway. So Farmington Road kind of starts to take you southwest a little bit. You start to get into some wine country out here. and then Highway 8, TV Highway or Tualatin Valley Highway gets you out into Aloha, and then out into Hillsboro, way out here. So this West Beaverton area is kind of bordered by Murray Boulevard, and then you have 170th out here on the west. You can see all the trees. I mean, that's something that really stands out to me. You know, when I'm in these neighborhoods and this area, is just all the green space. It's pretty wooded, and you have some really nice neighborhoods in here. Not a ton of new construction, not a ton of newer homes. You're looking at like a lot of 70s and 80s builds kind of through this stretch here. You're looking at West Beaverton here, this section, median home price, $630,000. And that seems a little bit high when you compare that to other neighborhoods in Beaverton, especially being a little bit further out. So generally, the further out you get from Portland, you know, kind of the more affordable things are. But I think if you look at that $630,000 median home price or median sale price, what you can really kind of attribute that to is some larger homes out in this area. Plus, there's a lot of great amenities. So there's walking paths and walking trails all throughout this area. And, you know, it's very quiet, very private, very peaceful. And I think that's something that people are willing to pay a little bit of a premium for, but also the price per square foot isn't necessarily higher. So you can get a little bit more for your money, but just on average, the home prices are going to be a little bit higher. So at the end of Allen here, which is kind of a main artery going through this middle section of Beaverton, where it meets Murray Boulevard, you have some shopping in here. There's a brew pub, there's Sherry's, which is a kind of a local diner. So a lot of shopping, everything you need is right here, kind of at this section here. And then if you follow Murray north-south, you can get into these neighborhoods, you know, just kind of along Murray here. And I mean, you'll be seeing some video here of some homes and kind of driving through some of these neighborhoods. A lot of tree-lined streets. So you get that a lot in a lot of different places, and you can't really tell as much, you know, probably from this map view here. But these are larger trees, more mature trees. So it's a little bit of a different feel than, you know, maybe some other areas in Beaverton that have been developed more recently, or that don't have as many of kind of the pine or Douglas fir trees that are, you know, towering up as much. The only other area that seems to be really consistent with this West Beaverton area, I would say, is this Highland neighborhood. You know, you got Highland Forest Park and this stretch through Hart Road. This is all very similar in here. Super nice area. And then if we look into Vose, so we were just looking out here in West Beaverton. We've looked at Highland in another video and this stretch right here. Vose is an area that is, you know, a little bit older. I would say, you know, from my perspective, Vose seems like probably the next up and coming area in Beaverton because it is one of the older neighborhoods. There's some smaller homes. It reminds me a lot of like a Southeast Portland neighborhood. You know, you're bordered by 217 here. So you have this kind of industrial stretch right along the freeway. And so the access is great, but you know, kind of being right in here along, you know, these industrial buildings, it's more of kind of a residential commercial mix. And, you know, that doesn't necessarily lend to, you know, the type of kind of suburban area that people have in mind when they think of Beaverton. But when you really get into, you know, these areas off Allen, you know, again, you're going to get some smaller homes, smaller lots. And, you know, there's some 100-year-old homes in here, really kind of ripe for investment. That's my perspective. I think purchasing a home in this area right now, you're going to get a better deal. As far as, you know, the home that you're going to get, you're looking in this Vose area, you're looking at $511,000 median sale price. But, you know, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I could see this area really gaining a lot of value because of the kind of investment potential, in particular, because you are right here next to this central Beaverton, downtown Beaverton area. So when you look at central Beaverton on a map, these are all businesses. This is not residential at all. There are some apartment buildings through here. There are some condos, but one of the coolest things about Beaverton that really kind of flies under the radar is this whole downtown area is really up and coming. I mean, you can see all of these restaurants, breweries, bars, all in here along Farmington. And, you know, this kind of 3-4 block area of this downtown Beaverton area is awesome. There's, you know, all these restaurants have outdoor seating. You have these kind of, you know, really popular, celebrated Portland breweries that have moved out west into the suburb a little bit, like Ex Novo Brewing. I think Breakside Brewing is going to be putting in a location here. Loyal Legion is a really cool kind of tap house, but also restaurant that has the original location in a very hip area of Southeast Portland. You know, they've decided to move out this way. Again, if you look at this whole area, this is going to be really all businesses, business buildings, commercial buildings with some apartments mixed in. So these are like apartments and condos in here. Something that doesn't get talked about a lot that is on the newer side is this food cart area. I mean, this whole area, you can see all these little food trucks in here. I mean, there's probably, at least a couple dozen. And then all of this green space is just open seating, open lawn. It's a great place to take the kids. It's a great place to go spend an afternoon. And this is really kind of, I would say one of the biggest hidden gems in Beaverton overall. But again, this Vose neighborhood, if you're looking at moving into Beaverton, if you want an area that maybe is a little more congested, has a little more energy, feels a little bit more like an urban neighborhood, and you can walk to some of these incredible restaurants where there actually is, some nightlife and some things to do. This could be, a great area to end up. So now I want to look at this West Slope area now, which is actually inside of 217. 217 is this freeway that runs north-south connecting Highway 26 to I-5 to the south here. So West Slope, and actually some of this, if you see, is unincorporated Washington County. But again, Beaverton School District, very much considered to be kind of a Beaverton neighborhood, although, if you look at its kind of proximity on a map to downtown Portland, if you're living in this West Slope area, you can get downtown Portland in 10 minutes, depending on how quickly you can get out of your neighborhood and if there's traffic and things like that. If you like the zoo or just hiking outdoors, Forest Park, Washington Park, all of these areas in here, there are just miles and miles of hiking trails, and you're right up on the hill up from downtown. So, a very common thing to do year round is, spend an afternoon hiking up here in these areas, maybe go to the zoo, and then you can pop down over here into downtown, or, really in particular, this Northwest 23rd area, which has some of the best restaurants, breweries, bars, tap houses, wine tasting rooms, shops, in the city overall. Really popular neighborhood. So if you were living here in West Slope, I mean, you're really just arm's length to some of the best areas in downtown Portland. These homes in here are going to skew a little bit older. There's not a ton of new construction, but the homes, the lots are very well maintained. You drive through this area on a given day, you're going to see, every second, third, fourth house is going to have, landscapers, people kind of maintaining their yard and things like that. So definitely some older homes, a lot of ranches and tri-levels, things like that. And you can't really see it on a map here, but you're starting to get up into the hills. So this whole stretch kind of bordering what's called the Tualatin Valley, and a lot of Beaverton, and then the rest of Portland. This whole area has a ton of elevation. These are what are called the West Hills, and so this west slope is, kind of creeping up onto this back side of the West Hills. So you have some rolling hills through here, some elevation change, and these streets are kind of terraced, working your way up the hill. I think overall, when people say West Hills, when you think of the West Hills and, really talking about kind of this area of Southwest Portland, moving all the way up Skyline Boulevard, where we can find that here. So Skyline kind of winds all the way up here, kind of at the crest, kind of creates a ridge all along the West Hills. This whole area tends to be considered a bit higher end, bigger houses, more expensive houses, and your price per square foot is going to be higher too. So, if you're looking at even a 1,500 square foot house, 3 bedrooms, maybe a fifth of an acre, maybe like 7,500 square foot lot, that's probably going to start somewhere around high sixes, maybe 700,000, unless it needs some work. So if you look at West Slope, the median sale price is $630,000, which is actually the same as what we looked at out here in West Beaverton, but you're going to get larger homes out here. So the price per square foot is going to be a little bit higher here in West Slope. So, that when you look at, the same price here versus the same price in a neighborhood like West Beaverton, that's really the discrepancy is, this area, a little more sought after, a little more exclusive, a little higher end, but the houses aren't necessarily bigger. Okay, and then so the last neighborhood that we're going to look at, we talked about this central Beaverton kind of commercial district, but just north of it is this Cedar Hills area, which is bordering West Slope. So if we go back to our map of Beaverton, you can see Cedar Hills is another area that is unincorporated Washington County, but again, it's Beaverton School District. It very clearly kind of continues through, these main arteries of Beaverton, Highway 26, Walker Road, Farmington, TV Highway, etc. So in Cedar Hills, you're going to get a lot of similarity with West Slope, but it's not going to be as wooded necessarily. They both look pretty green. You're going to get larger, more mature trees in this area. You're going to get a little more sloping, and kind of more up on the hillside. It does start to kind of creep back into the valley over here, a little more kind of a rolling hills type feel. And this entire neighborhood, it was probably developed around the 60s, 70s, maybe 80s. You don't see a ton of new construction. You don't see a ton of builds from the 90s, 2000s on. But it's a very, well laid out, very uniform neighborhood and area. It's kind of anchored by this Commonwealth Lake right here, which has a trail around it, which is really cool. If you live even several blocks from this lake area, you can walk up there. I think probably one of the best parts about living in Cedar Hills is you have a ton of amenities and you also have a lot of accessibility. So you look at Highway 26 right here, similar to West Slope. If you got on Highway 26, you're going to get right into downtown Portland. So, maybe 10 minutes at best in West Slope, maybe closer to like 12 to 15 minutes in Cedar Hills. Again, depending on kind of how deep into the neighborhood you are and what traffic looks like and everything. But you have these parks here. There's a newer park right here, the Cedar Hills Park. I don't know if the park itself is newer, but it's been completely redone. So you have like a splash pad right here. We take our kids there all the time, and it's kind of tucked away up in here. It shares a parking lot with an elementary school, so it's very private. You don't get a lot of funny business and people kind of just wandering through. It's all little kids and families, typically. You also have the rec center, so there's a lot of classes for kids here. There's a gym, things like that. And I think there's a middle school. Yeah, Cedar Park Middle School is over here as well. So you have a lot just kind of along this Cedar Hills Boulevard corridor. In particular, when you get back down into where we were looking at some of these commercial zones in central Beaverton. So this is over here considered to be more like downtown Beaverton. A lot of great restaurants, really an up and coming area. Even 10, 20 years ago, felt a little more run down. But just to the north of it, and really kind of feels like the same area, is Cedar Hills, where you have Cedar Hills Crossing, formerly known as the Beaverton Mall. So there's some shops and kind of big box stores through here. But this area right here, as you go up Cedar Hills Boulevard a little bit more, this is really up and coming. There's been a ton of new development and new construction through here. You have Kingpins, which is like a family fun center, bowling alley, sports bar, arcade, things like that. You have Shake Shack, which everyone is really excited about. I think like the first weekend it was open, there was a line around the corner here. And then McMinimans, Cedar Hills. McMinimans is a local chain that's really popular. They just built this new building in here. Really cool place to go get lunch, get dinner. Wildfin, it's a nice restaurant. So there's a ton in here. Again, if you were living in Cedar Hills, pretty much at your doorstep. I mean, if you're living in a lot of these areas, you can walk down here, and go grab lunch, go grab dinner, take the kids out, for some entertainment. There's a movie theater in here, so there's a lot to do. So, again, if we're looking at Beaverton as a whole, this is a huge area, and there's some distinct differences as far as the age and the style of homes. Kind of the further out you get from Portland, generally the newer the homes are, and the more affordable they can be too, and not based on necessarily sale price, but based on the price per square foot. So like we talked about in West Slope, $630,000, it's not going to be the same home for $630,000 out in like West Beaverton or kind of the south end of this Five Oaks area. And I think the biggest differences with a lot of these Beaverton neighborhoods are, again, your accessibility and proximity to downtown Portland, your accessibility and proximity to freeways, so how quickly you can get places. But there's a lot of consistency too, as far as great amenities with walking trails and parks. A lot of grocery stores, and really kind of everything that you would need. But overall, there is a different aesthetic down here to the south, here in this central area, and then in another video we'll talk about this northern section of Beaverton, which again, like we talked about, a lot of this is unincorporated Washington County, but Beaverton School District. And this whole area up here, I mean, it's incredible. Some of the most desirable real estate in the Portland metro area. It's wooded. It's a lot of new construction, feels very high end, a lot of bigger 4 or 5 bedroom homes, and it's pretty self-sustained as well, because you do have grocery stores and things like that up here. But this central section of Beaverton, you're going to get some old and some new. You're going to get some nice upscale, and then some areas that are kind of ripe for some turnover, some investment. In particular, this kind of central downtown Beaverton area and this Vose neighborhood too. So hope that was helpful. All right, that was our look at Beaverton's central section. We took a look at some great neighborhoods. If you're interested in this area, you want to learn more, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link below in the description of this video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, again, we would love to help with your move to the Portland area. And if this video is helpful, make sure to hit the like button. It really helps us. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We really appreciate you watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.